Hello everyone and welcome to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. To bridge this gap that is causing harm to the planet and to you and to me, we have Upscrap. It is a sustainable business based in Chennai, and today we are going to be speaking to the founders, Dominique and Priyanjoli. Hello Dominique, hello Priyanjoli, welcome to our show. And
Hi.
we would love a small introduction of the two of you. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Priyanjoli Basu. I'm based out of Chennai. Dominique and I started Upscrap around 4 years ago. It started as an idea which we didn't know how to take it forward initially because no one was really working with fabric scraps in India at that point. But we decided that it was time to work towards something which is better for the planet. And Domi was working as a researcher. I was already in the world of fashion, and I had seen a lot of waste from the time we cut a fabric to the time we use it, and the longevity of the clothes was so limited that we thought it would be a great idea to come up with a brand where we can work with all the extra fabrics that come from designers or factories, and we thought of creating products that are alternative to plastic.
You said you were in fashion. Were you working
Right.
in the country or were you outside the country?
Well, I started my work in Bombay as a stylist, so I used to work for fashion photographers for movies and as well as still photographs, where we used to also buy a lot of things which always went inside a trunk and never got used. So that was my first time I thought of what happens to these clothes. But I started in Bombay, then I went to study in London, which is where I actually got introduced to fast fashion much more, because I felt growing up in India, we were still tailor making clothes compared to the kind of fast fashion which is already available elsewhere.
Right. Dominique, you are, I think, by training an epidemiologist, right? How did you change tracks? What happened?
So I haven't changed tracks. It's just that it happened that 10 years ago when I had, my first child, I just realized that I, didn't want him to grow in a place where it wouldn't be nice to be, and I just realized that whatever I was doing at that time and whatever I'm doing now is actually impacting his future and their future. So I think it's all started with a journey 10 years back when I just decided that I needed to change something in my lifestyle and change something in how I live and the choices that I make, because the choices will just make a big differences in the future because of all the climate changes and the pollution. And I think so when Priyanjoli was running a sustainable fashion brand, and we were friends at that time, and we were having a lot of chat about what can we do more, what can we do better, and we just realized that she was not finding a solution to make best of use of the fabric scrap that she was generating in a workshop. And then we just decided to just find a solution, and this is how it started, with the fabric scrap that she was generating. And then we realized along the year that there's so much of fabric scrap and which is generated, there's so much needs from the people to be aware of how they can discard mindfully their clothes and their clothing, that it just started very small, and it's getting bigger and bigger every year because there's so much around us in terms of fabric that we are providing one solution, but I think there's a need for much more. And at the moment, there's only so much that we do in capacity. But we'll never, at the moment, we are never getting dry on fabric scrap. There's always fabric scrap which are coming to us, either.
So, how do you all collect the fabrics that you all use for your products? Where do you all collect that from?
So I'll take that question. When we started, like Dominique mentioned, it was just us between friends who were designers, our friends who had textile factories. We asked them if they would be interested in finding some solutions to the textile waste problem, and most of them were actually looking forward to it because I feel a lot of people have become extremely conscious about the different kind of world we are living in, whether it's climate change, whether it's excessive, shopping, whether it's that is causing another kind of, fast fashion. We chose textile because A, it was my strength to be able to create products out of textiles. So we started reaching out to people who we know first, and then we started training girls who could create products out of it. So textile was our first preference in terms of material because I could easily design things out of it. And over the last 4 years, we've built a clientele along with a lot of supporters who keep messaging us and send us stuff. So there are brands, there are factories, there are individuals who have now been able to get in touch with us easily because we're online in a lot of platforms. A lot of textile that come to us, firstly, they're different materials from cotton to semi, nylon to denim. So we have to decide what we are making out of these. So usually we try and do home products with denims, or we do a lot of patchwork tote bags and pouches. So R&D, which is our main job to see what is the best product that can be made out of the fabric that we have. And that has to be decided according to color, size, and what material it is.
Right.
So for example, if it is not cotton, we don't use it for any of our face wipes or masks. But on the other hand, scrunchies, we could use any material because a lot of people prefer a little shiny material, and we don't use those for the products that are for kids, for example, as well. So we try and be very conscious in the times of designing as well. So each product, each material, each color, they all have to come together.
Right. Dominic, can you take us through the process? You have picked up scraps from your suppliers, whoever they are. It comes to your place, your factory, or whatever. What happens next?
Sure. So if it has come from an individual, usually what we offer people is actually to go and pick it up from them because it's just more convenient. So it's been picked up from the people, or it's been picked up. The fabric scrap can be picked up from the factory or can be picked up from the tailoring unit. It then reach our office, and then it goes through a first round of segregation, which is depending on what we get, if it needs to be washed or not, and then depending on the condition and depending on the material, then it gets segregated already into different purposes. So we usually work with 4 purposes. One is a fabric which is going to be upcycled. And in this case, it can be a fabric scrap, which can be as tiny as my hand, and even smaller, because we use everything, including the stuffing for our products, is actually fabric scrap. So even tiny pieces of fabric scrap are being used. So upcycled, it can be also recycled in the sense that the material that is come to us, we haven't found yet a solution. It's not in good condition either. So then it's going to be handed over to another company who work with us, and then it's going to be recycled into home product like mops in a proper factory. Then it can be these garments that come to us. So when it's garment, we also do a segregation in terms of if these garments are actually still in good condition, so they can be actually donated. So we have tied up with several NGOs in the city of Chennai who are always in the lookout for Indian wear, for the people that they are working with, and for people who actually can't afford to buy clothes either for themselves or for their children that often. And then finally, the last option is eventually, because the garment is in very good condition and it still be reworn and have a second life, then we can also offer to be thrifted, in the sense that it goes onto art platform as a second-hand garment that can be bought, that can be bought by someone else. So that's the first round of segregation. And so then, depending on the segregation, then these different type of fabrics and garments just go to and whatever is get for us is the upcycling and the thrifting. That the upcycling will go through a new round of segregation after that, which will be depending on the size, on the color, and on the material, will be then identify, based on all of this, which product are we going to make out of these fabric scraps and garments.
All right. Now, you have spoken about upcycling and recycling. Can you explain the difference between the two?
Sure. So it's actually quite confusing for some people, so I'm happy to just clarify this. So when we use recycling, it means that we're going to transform what we so for example, if we're recycling plastic, okay, because some plastic can be recycled, so I'm going to transform it into another type of material, and in this process of transforming it into this different type of material, I'm going to downgrade the value of this product.
Okay.
And the big difference is with upcycling, I'm actually not transforming the material, but I'm making something new out of the same material, and I'm adding value to this material. So in our case, for example, when we say that we upcycle fabric scrap, it means that we are taking the fabric scrap, but we are not transforming it. It's still a fabric scrap, but then we find the best use for this fabric scrap, and once it is integrated in a new product, then this product is adding up. It has a value which is much higher than the fabric scrap as such. So, for example, if I have a long strip of fabric scrap like this, and I decide that because there's enough material, then I can make a flower, and then this flower I'm going to put it on the clip, and then it's going to be a flower clip. Okay?
Right.
So the fabric scrap that I had initially had absolutely zero value. But once I've cut the fabric and I made a flower out of it, and I put this flower on the clip, then this fabric scrap has an extra value.
Now, with approximately 50 million tons of clothing sold every single year, what can you tell us about fast fashion? How is it affecting climate change and also the environment? And of course, like I said, you and me. How is this happening?
So what's happening is that, so right now what is being said is that the fashion industry is actually the second largest, most polluting industry after energy. And that the textile production seems to be around what they say approximately 1.2 billion tons annually of total greenhouse gas emission. So that's more than all international flights and maritime transport combined together.
Right.
So why is this? It's actually because the fashion industry is actually very taxing on resources and natural resources. So the first resources that is needed is actually the resources for growing or for making the fabric. So growing, it's usually you have your cotton and it's natural. You grow your cotton, you have cotton, you need to water it. But a lot of textile now, actually 60% of the textile industry now is not based out of natural material, but is based out of synthetic materials, which are made out of fossil fuel. Okay, so in order for you to have lycra or to have a polyester top, okay, you're gonna, in order to be made, this polyester top will require several gallons of fossil fuel, of petrol. So the fashion industry and the way now the fast fashion industry works is that it's very taxing on the natural resources, which are water. It's very taxing also on polluting also because of all the different dyes that are used and which are now after that released into the water. So, and the problem with all these clothing which are made by the fashion industry is that they are a huge amount of them made. Okay, they were saying at some point that some brands like Zara had 52 different micro season within a year, which means that 52 times they were changing entirely
the wardrobe, people's wardrobes, yes,
that were in their stores. So imagine every time that you go into a Zara, that you go into a Mango, that you go into a H&M, you never see the same clothes. Okay,
right.
so it has become not only hugely impactful on how they are produced, but is also the amount that is produced, which is completely unrealistic in comparison to the actual needs of people.
Right.
Right. And Dominique, I read somewhere recently that since 2000, the production of clothes has doubled. And also that it takes about 2,248.534 liters of water to make a single T-shirt. So
Right.
I do understand and I agree with you that, the resources, it is a real strain on the resources. But then we are still buying, which we need to stop at some point and not buy so senselessly. Now,
Yeah. Sorry.
Priyanjoli, a question for you.
Right.
Mass-produced cheap clothes are a disaster. But what makes them so attractive? Like you said, when you started with your introduction, you said today people are becoming aware. The effect those clothes and the production of fabric is having on the environment.
Right.
When I too go to buy clothes, I do look out for a label that says sustainable, it is recyclable, so on and so forth. But there are other clothes in the market which are not labeled like that, but we are still very attracted to them. What is the cause of that attraction?
So personally, I can't tell you the cause of the attraction because, taste is very individual. So one can like something better, and at that point they're not looking at the process that has gone behind making those clothes. They're looking at it as a consumer. And I will take you back a little bit. It is very important to understand the consumer mentality as well. And that can be divided geographically because if you look at India, we took on fast fashion much later than the rest of the world. So I'll speak in a very holistic way where a lot of countries, the cost of making handmade clothes was so expensive that it made sense to have fast fashion. So they at that point did not know that it would be so hazardous in the future. They started it as an alternative to cheap production of clothes. Whereas in India, we did not have these big shops, H&Ms and Zara's till I think 2000 and 2001. So I think till then we were still buying Indian fabric. We were going to the local shops, finding what textile they have. And I think even the concept of mixed textile, which was nylon or synthetic, came much later.
Much later.
But what happened, was we as Indians started traveling abroad and we started thinking that this is what the fashion world is all about, what Europeans are doing or Americans are doing. But what was actually happening is we were taking on something which was not yet, they had not yet figured out how to work towards such unsustainable things. They were just doing it for profit. And as a consumer, we did not think so much. We were just buying things because it was not available in India. Then when we started getting it in India, we were also at a time where internet was coming about in India and the the whole idea of being seen was there. So you didn't want to be seen in another, the same pair of dress or clothing, because it shows that you're wearing the same thing again. So I think this was all coming from a consumer mentality that was created by marketing companies and brands, which I feel has changed, because again, thanks to the power of the internet, there are so many messages talking about the issues that are taking place because of fast fashion, because of all the resources being used, as well as the incident that happened in Bangladesh that shook us all up, and the whole concept of fashion revolution started in London. Because also for an ordinary person trying to live your day-to-day life and do your own hustle, you don't want to take a fight up with a big giant who has been working on the textile industry for years and has probably bigger lawyers to fight you on this. But what changed was it became a community conversation. It was no longer one person who felt that this is bad for climate change. It was that one person who started talking to more people. Those more people started reading into things. People started questioning where their clothes were coming from. And I would say it has taken us at least a good 8 to 10 years to even be here confidently having this conversation, saying that it is bad for the planet. We have data to show you this is bad for the planet. And there is also data showing that big companies don't pay fair wages. There is this whole smaller collections that continue to happen, and they put a tag saying organic, which is greenwashing. So we're kind of understanding a lot more about how the marketing has worked for all these fast fashion brands.
So basically what
Yes.
you were doing was that you all, Upscrap, were not only sharing information, but you all were educating people.
Yes,
Because
I
when
think
you
Correct.
teach a person to fish, it's so much it's so much better than just
Correct.
giving them products.
Correct. So we actually started through very few products and mostly workshops. We were doing, Dominique and I both started with a lot of talks in the city. And coming back to how people know us, it is a lot with word of mouth, because whether it's a cafe, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a event where someone's doing a pop-up, both Dominic and I continue to consciously have talks. We have we keep an open conversation after the talk where people are asking us all the possible questions.
Right. There are so many more questions that I need to ask. There are some,
Sure.
of course, we are waiting to see and share with our viewers some of the videos. But right
Right.
now it's time for a short break. Please don't go anywhere.
Sure.
We will be back soon. Hello and welcome back to the Navin Times Talk from the Heart. We are in conversation with Dominique and Priyanjoli of Upscrap. So, Dominique, this is a question for you, that in your opinion, there are so many materials today, synthetic as well as natural. But in your opinion, which is the most polluting material?
So, no doubt, definitely the synthetic materials.
Yeah.
One, so for the reason that these materials, first of all, they are made with fossil fuel. So
Any particular,
so,
Dominic, sorry, any particular synthetic material that you can name?
yeah, polyester, for example.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so in order to make polyester, you need oil. Okay, and in order to put some colors on this fabric, you also need very
Dyes.
polluting dyes. Okay, and so then this so in the process of being made, these fabrics are highly polluting and highly demanding on natural resources, along with water, of course. and then they are made in some factories, everywhere in India, Bangladesh, and some other places. You buy them from the fast fashion store, but then this is not the end of the pollution. When you wash them, actually, every time that you wash them, these garments, which are made of polyester, they actually release fibers, okay? And these fibers are actually also polluting the water that is being used for washing.
Okay.
Not only they are highly polluting in the process of being made, but when you also wash them, they are still polluting the environment, which won't be the case with some material like cotton material. And for example, that's for polyester type of fabric, but if we talk about viscose, for example, which is another type of synthetic material, for viscose, we don't use oil, but we use trees, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So once again, it's either oil or trees. They are,
right.
they are highly needed, for tree especially. So that's the problem with all these synthetic materials, that either they are polluting in the process of being made, or they are still polluting when you wash them. And then ultimately when you discard them, so if you don't discard them mindfully, they will go into some landfill, and then they will continue emitting some CO2 and some carbon emission, and they will take even more time to decompose. So what you have to understand with this synthetic fabric is that in opposition to natural fabric like cotton or like hemp, the cotton will naturally biodegrade, okay? And then after some time, you won't see them anymore in the environment, it will be absorbed. Right. Whereas for the synthetic material, not only that will take a much longer time to decompose, but it will never decompose and being absorbed. It will continue to pollute the environment.
Right. Now, we have been speaking about fast fashion. Priyanjoli, can you give us a few benefits beside, we are protecting the environment. Besides that, what are the benefits of slow fashion?
Multiple, actually. Let's start with first and foremost, we can't stop people from buying fast fashion because in a lot of countries it's not possible. But what we can do is be conscious of what we buy. So if we already have a few t-shirts, we shouldn't go and buy more. So it's just being a bit mindful of what you're buying, because also not buying would also change the whole economy of the world. So it's very important to keep some things in mind, that we can't stop people from buying fast fashion. But what we could do is try and also invest in local brands, because in a country like India, we have every state representing a kind of textile, a kind of clothing. So it's very important to also boost up the economy in the region where one is living in, because we also come from an economy where these weavers who are working in the villages don't get paid as much as the designers who are selling their work. So it's important to definitely invest in the idea of buying local, and not just clothes. It could be food, it could be other materials, because that will help the state or the region that you're living in grow its own artisans and their crafts and their textiles. So it's very important that we keep a parallel between two, including sustainable fashion, where again one cannot go and buy a lot of sustainable fashion because that just goes against the purpose. Again, when you're buying from a sustainable brand, you're helping a person who's trying to help the planet, trying to be conscious. Also, fast fashion is cheaper than slow fashion.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's very important to actually, again, coming back to, as a consumer, you have to have the balance of both. So when you are buying a sustainable fashion brand, you again have to be conscious as to why you're buying it. Is it because you just need another clothing item, or is it something you really like? But if you do pick that up, make the effort of wearing it enough or wearing it till a time you can pass it on to someone. Which in the case of fast fashion is not possible because after a few washes, it takes another shape or size. So a fast fashion product is not usually a product you can pass on to someone unless it's in a good condition and you send it for thrift. Again, for that, one has to learn to take care of their clothes because you can't just buy, wear, and throw because that itself is again a problem. If you're buying something, whether it's a fast fashion item or a slow fashion item, it's very important to know how to take care of it, which means that you can't be washing those clothes every day because then you're wasting water as well. So to be mindful of how many times do you wear something before you wash it, how do you keep that so that you can pass it on to someone else. And when you're buying slow fashion, you're also helping the person who's a small business owner to have a profitable business, to be able to continue doing it. And I'm a huge promoter of buying local. So I feel that helps the economy of the region. And all the fast fashion brands are usually extremely big, powerful companies, and they don't understand the value of buying consciously or taking care of clothes. As individuals, we have to take that on us, that if we are buying clothes from a fast fashion brand, we should also limit ourselves to buying how much we want to.
What we can do after we finish using, we do not want to use our clothes, we normally give it away to someone who can use it. Or
Correct.
a reminder, I don't know if you'll have it in Chennai, but in Bombay there used to be a bhandi wala. He used to come and he used to take our clothes, and in exchange he used to give us utensils.
A vessel, a utensil,
Absolutely.
yes.
So you never felt that your clothes were going to waste.
Correct.
It was either given to someone or you shared it and handed it down to your siblings, or the third option was that it was exchanged. I'm not very sure if that exchange policy is still on because everything has gone online, and today
Correct.
we are shopping rather mindlessly. And it is not
Correct.
just because we need clothes, it is more because social media is bombarding us with so much. We are always being told what to wear, how to wear, and
Correct.
how to mix and match. So yes, a company like yours must be having a lot of challenges where that is concerned, but with the changes and with more people becoming conscious, I think we are on the right path. Dominique, to you, what do you think that governments all over the world, not just in India, what are the systems that can be put into place by government, in your opinion, by governments all over the world? What can they do so that there is not so much of wastage? And like Priyanjoli said, that today big brands have the label that says green and sustainable, but we are not very, very sure because greenwashing is happening all the time. Everyone says, it's sustainable, but it's not true. How do we know? How is there a government system that says these are the things that you have to keep in mind, and only then you get a label?
Well, I think in most of the world and most of government, I think there's two words: there's regulation and certification. Regulation, one is just to make sure that whoever company is not creating too much waste, and if they are, then they be called up upon and being requested to change their processes in order to reduce their impact on the planet in terms of either waste creation or pollution. And then the second thing is certification. The only way you can make a difference between a brand which is sustainable and one which is not is because one has been certified, with the organic cotton use, sustainably, produced, paying fair wages to their workers and things like that. So I think, the only, and actually that will also be very pertinent and very accurate and very useful for the customer as well, because right now there's so many, as we mentioned earlier, so many greenwashing going on, especially by big companies who have the means to invest into marketing. Then they can make you believe everything. But
Absolutely.
if on the other hand there were a stamp or a certification which as a customer will ensure that the product that you are buying is actually sustainable, has been produced in good conditions, and is not being overly taxing on the planet, then it's all a gain for the brand
True.
and for the customer.
True.
So
True.
I think right now in Europe, for example, whatever if you go to a supermarket, you will have a label as organic and non-organic fruits or vegetable. So if we could do the same for the garments, for example, I think that would be amazing, and that hopefully we would not need to decipher either how the brand is talking to us, or how the garment is being brought to us. I think what also is happening is there is so much lack of transparency, on how these clothes are actually being produced and are being made. Then it's very easy to get completely lost, in the different kind of speeches, and actually not to know exactly if what to do or what not to
Right.
do. And I think when it comes to what we are trying with Priyanjoli is really try really hard, one, to inform on greenwashing, as much as we can, because it's part of those. That it's also help customers and help our community to make better choices. And what we realize is that all these better choices, they are better because they are being informed. So I'm buying anything because I have made a little bit of research before. I know that this brand is working towards something which is better, is the way it's labeled, the products which are being used. So I think it's always easy to fall into the trap of, because the communication is so well made, but you are the only one as an individual who
can make the
able
difference.
to make who can make the difference. And this difference is being made only because you're making informed choices.
Absolutely. And with companies like y'all, which are having workshops and are educating people, sharing knowledge, I think again that we are on the right path. Now, the gifting season is coming soon. Soon it's going to be Diwali, and then of course Christmas. And in Goa, we embrace both the festivals with both our hands, and there's a lot of festivities that go on. So how would you advise people, Priyanjoli, on celebrating mindfully without creating too much of waste, and doing it in an attractive manner? How can we do that? You spoke about creativity, and how can we bring that in here?
Right. So I'll go back to what you said about this person coming to pick up clothes and giving you a utensil as a return for
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
So in our country, I feel that we already had a lot of things that existed. You see, like we did not use plastic growing up when it was a festival, because we didn't have that kind of access to materials which are now coming to India. So I'm going to go back to the things that all of us at some point have always done it, but somewhere we forgot that, we can spend a little time. Of course, like I said, upcycling or anything that we do needs a little bit more time compared to rest. So you can easily go to a shop and buy 6 things cheaper. And again, that's not being mindful, because you're going to throw that away. Instead, if you can identify the things that you need. So for example, you need something for wrapping the gift. So you can use newspaper to wrap it and add some beautiful natural flowers to it. You can add small ferns to it. You can use old packaging which somebody had gifted you, and you can cut out shapes and put it on that. You can also use fabric. We work with Hiroshiki wraps, so we have fabric. So you can cut out old fabric and just tie them up and put a flower or a little leaf on it. So that goes in terms of packaging. As far as decor is concerned, of course, there are so many home stuff that you already have, or you can spend that time with your kids or nieces or nephews in creating something, and use it for decoration. So DIY is something we can bring back. It needs a little bit time, but we can already see that some of us during COVID took that time to step back and think through all of this. So I feel that the change that we're talking about, even in the festival season, is going to be much more now, because people want to celebrate it with their close ones. So to be able to think through the category that you need, like the things that you need during a festival, and then find their options for it. And these would be my few selections regarding packaging and festivities.
And you said sit with your family, spend time with your family while doing it, and create whatever. Like in Goa, we have a lot of competitions during Christmas time,
Right.
where
Right.
the star making competition, and
Right.
it becomes sort of a community,
Absolutely.
activity, and it is not
Right.
just about the time that is required. It requires a lot of effort, it requires a lot of attention, and today, with everybody wanting everything fast, it is difficult. But then again, if you want to do and bring about change, you can do it. It's just one small step at a time. And
Absolutely.
that brings us to the end of our program. Dominique and Priyanjoli, thank you so much. We are now looking forward to watch that video where you have shown us how to pack, instead of using gift wrapping paper, how to pack with cloth and
Fabric. Yes.
with fabric. Yes, of course. And to all our viewers, thank you for watching. Dominique and Priyanjali have given us many ideas. We can put a lot of and have a lot of plans and then make them work. But we have to remember the plans are all there, but we just have one planet and we need to look after it, because it's yours and it's mine. Thank you once again. Until next time, take care.